Hello one and all, this is Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. This time around, Wasteland 3 for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Wasteland 3 is of course the sequel to the acclaimed Wasteland 2, with the story picking up not long after the events of Wasteland 2, where the Desert Rangers are now stuck in the freezing cold of post-apocalyptic Colorado. By taking control of either procedurally generated pair or even a pair that the player actually makes themselves with their own looks, their own perks, their own skill sets, and their own attributes, in a limited fashion of course. You enter Colorado, finding out that the Wasteland isn't so barren after all, as a group of not only survivors but also raging families are trying to take over and hoard and take what they believe theirs. The gameplay, for those who haven't played a Wasteland game in the past, is a strategic RPG, very similar to Final Fantasy Tactics, even right down to the camera angle. Thankfully, the models are big enough that you can make out, see, and understand what is going on when you're on the field, a problem that has happened in previous games, not just Wasteland games, but also games in the same genre. Like any turn-based RPG, or any RPG in general, there's a lot to manage when it comes to the combat. Beyond just using your AP or action points to decide to move around the map, attack, or even just guard and prepare for the next wave of attack from the enemies. You have to micromanage, even pulling up the menu in the middle of battle if need be to add quick items like healing items that are necessary if you want to live, or injury kits to prevent someone from bleeding out after your partner has gotten shot. Of course, understanding the field, understanding the layout, is detrimental to success when it comes to Wasteland 3 and any game in the genre in general, and this for me is where the game really expands, because this is a game that not only has varied terrains and varied environments when it comes to combat, but also environmental hazards like barrels that if you shoot and explode could blow up not only your enemy but yourself if you're too close. From a narrative perspective, though I'm not that deep into the story thus far, I must say that the risk and reward that comes with not only the overall narrative but also the side quest is very, very intuitive, very fun, and once again, like any great RPG, very rewarding, especially when it comes to dialogue options. As seen in games like Fallout, you have certain perks and abilities and stats that can be upgraded, and depending on if you upgraded that skill enough, you'll be able to, say, threaten someone and actually succeed, or barter and get more for your junk. Mission structure is actually fairly open, with dialogue choices that pop up from time to time that could avoid a complete brawl, or in certain cases, depending on the NPC, may just result in that NPC getting shot down if you don't have the right skills upgraded already. Technically, the game is a mixed bag. While graphically it looks as good as you expect from a game like this, and it runs fairly smooth, though there are frame rate drops, especially during big time explosions. The loading screens and the loading times are really bad, especially just moving from, say, a town to a small shop. Though I haven't encountered a plethora of glitches, I did encounter a few, including one where I defeated the person I was supposed to, and the battle continued even though the person surrendered, and I assumed because I hadn't defeated all of his henchmen. I die, reload my save, do it again, and when I kill him first, all of his henchmen are still alive, he surrenders, and the game continues the story, which shocked me because I assumed that I had done something wrong the first time, and come to find out it was actually a glitch. Of course, you could have a major battle and the battle could glitch out. Thankfully, there are manual and autosave, so I will make sure I do that frequently. The menu interface is definitely made for PC players and not necessarily for console users. I'm playing on the Xbox One and it feels a little sluggish. It's not the best, it's not the most intuitive on consoles or with a controller, but I believe with a keyboard and mouse, it would actually feel a lot better to use. This ties into some general life complaints when it comes to the user interface. There's a lot to manage, there's a lot to take control of, there's a lot to move around, and a lot of organizational options, especially when it comes to items, is not the best, especially when you have something like a modded item. Instead of that item being removed from your inventory after you've attached it to a particular weapon or an armor, it stays in the inventory without any indication that it's actually been attached to something. I also wish you could pull back the camera a little bit further, though you can zoom in and zoom out. To me, it feels like you can't pull the camera back far enough to see a bigger area, especially when you're just normally traversing or trying to plan, say, a sneak attack, or at least being able to tilt the camera a little bit so you can see from a ground level perspective. And though it may have this function, I have not seen or figured out how to auto progress the text. Overall, Wasteland 3 is a wonderful, strategic, tactical RPG with some good dialogue, some nice storytelling thus far, and of course, some great combat. Technically, there are some issues, hopefully, that will be ironed out. Some I just don't think will be, like the user interface on consoles. It's just something that you have to live with, something that you have to get used to. But it doesn't take away from the overall game. It doesn't take away from the greatness of what you're playing. I definitely say if you're into strategic RPGs, into tactical RPGs, if you're into the old Fallout games like Fallout 1 and 2, this game is absolutely wonderful. This is perfect for you. Pick it up right now and enjoy it. If not, I say give it a chance via Game Pass if you have Xbox or PC, of course. Download it, try it out for a little bit, because the game doesn't take long before it introduces not only what the gameplay is, but also how the stories and how the character interactions are. So there you have it. This has been Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. Wasteland 3 for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Now if you don't mind, I have to go back into the cold Colorado wasteland. I may have to stop some thieves from robbing some corpses, or I may be just told to get out of a building because people don't have time for me. But if I have the opportunity to save a life by simply giving them my injury kit, I will have no choice but to say, "Oh Lordy."